Last night, while the world was quiet and no one was watching, the person you love may have reached a moment they could not escape anymore. Not a small moment, not just a wave of sadness, something deeper, something final. They were alone with their thoughts, alone with their heart, and for once there was nowhere left to run. No noise, no distraction, no easy excuse, just the truth, standing right in front of them. And when that truth finally touched the deepest part of them, the tears came. Not the kind of tears people show in public, not the kind that ask to be comforted. These were the tears that come when a person finally sees what they have been trying not to see. Stay with me here, because this matters more than you think. What happened last night was not weakness, it was not confusion, it was not some passing emotional storm that will disappear by morning. It was a private breaking point, a silent awakening. And if you have felt in your own heart that something has shifted, if you woke up today carrying a strange heaviness or a quiet pull you cannot explain, there may be a reason for that. Because sometimes the biggest changes happen in silence, and the person who cried in the dark is not the same person waking up today. For a long time, this person has been carrying feelings they could not fully name. They tried to stay in control, they tried to act normal, they told themselves stories that made everything easier to manage. Maybe they said it was nothing. Maybe they said time would erase it. Maybe they said distance would calm it down. But deep inside, something kept growing. Something kept pressing against the walls they built. And last night, those walls did not hold. That is why the tears were so heavy. They were not only about pain, they were about recognition, about seeing clearly what had been blurred for too long, about feeling all at once the weight of what they truly feel, the weight of what they pushed away, the weight of what they can no longer deny. Listen carefully, because this is the part most people miss. When someone cries like that in complete solitude, it often means they have stopped performing even for themselves. They are no longer acting strong, no longer acting distant, no longer acting untouched. In that room, in that hour, they met the truth without a mask. And once a person meets a truth like that face to face, life does not stay arranged the same way after. Sometimes the hardest truth to face is not the dark part of us. Sometimes it is the soft part, the honest part, the part that still longs, still cares, still feels deeply even after trying to shut down. People hide this tenderness because it is powerful, because once it is admitted, everything starts to change. You cannot unknow what your heart knows. You cannot keep living the same script once your deeper self has stepped forward and said, enough. That may be what happened to them last night. Maybe it was a memory. Maybe it was your name crossing their mind at the wrong time, or maybe at exactly the right time. Maybe it was a song, a silence, a late-night thought that arrived with too much force to push away. Maybe nothing dramatic happened on the outside at all. Maybe the outside looked completely still while the inside turned upside down. That is how it often happens. Quietly, invisibly, suddenly. 1 second they are managing. The next second they are flooded by everything they have not allowed themselves to feel. And when that flood begins, it does not ask for permission. It just comes. If this is touching something in you, keep listening, because what comes next explains why this moment matters so much. The tears were not only about missing someone, they were also about lost time, about the days spent pretending, about the conversations never had, about the messages unsent, about the fear that kept winning when honesty should have spoken first. When a person finally understands a truth they have been avoiding, they do not only grieve the situation, they grieve the version of themselves that kept hiding from it. They grieve the distance they created. They grieve the moments that could have gone differently if they had only been brave enough sooner. That is why this kind of crying feels so intense. It is not just emotion, it is release. It is the body letting go of resistance. It is the heart mourning the cost of denial. And yet, as painful as it looks, this is often the beginning of real change. So if part of you fears that they are falling apart, hear this clearly. They may actually be coming together. What looks like collapse can be the start of reordering. What looks like emotional ruin can be the first honest step toward wholeness. Sometimes a person has to break open before they can become real again. And once that process starts, even if it is messy, even if it is slow, something essential has already changed. The truth they touched is probably not one single sentence. It is more like many realizations arriving at once, locking together, becoming impossible to separate. They may have understood that what they feel is not temporary, that it did not fade just because they tried to ignore it, that the bond they share with you is not something their mind invented to fill empty space, that the distance they kept was a shield, not an answer. that the version of themselves that comes alive around you cannot be easily repeated anywhere else, that pretending otherwise has been draining them more than they wanted to admit. These are not light thoughts. These are life-altering recognitions, and when they arrive together, they hit with force. They shake the structure of the inner world, they challenge old choices, they demand honesty. This is why last night may have felt sacred, even if it was painful, because something hidden finally stepped into the light inside them. Something real took its place at the center. And once that happens, the heart begins to reorganize around what is true, not around what is convenient. That process takes time, but the moment of seeing clearly is the moment everything begins to move in a new direction, even if nothing visible has happened yet. What makes this even more important is that it happened in solitude. Alone, there is no audience. No need to explain. No need to protect an image. No one to distract the mind. No one to interrupt the feeling before it completes its work. In solitude, a person meets themselves without decoration. That is what gives private tears their power. They are honest in a way public tears often cannot be. They are not trying to prove anything. They are not trying to gain sympathy. They are simply the raw sound of a heart finally telling the truth. And if the person you love sat there and let those feelings move through them instead of shutting them down, that took courage. Real courage. The kind most people never show because no one claps for it, no one sees it, no one praises it, but it still changes everything. Remember that. The biggest transformation in a human life is often silent at first. It does not announce itself with dramatic speeches. It begins in private, in stillness, in shaking breaths, in eyes full of tears. In the moment a person admits, even if only to themselves, that what they feel is real and will not disappear just because they wish it would. Now you may be wondering what happens next. Will they reach out? Will they speak? Will they finally stop hiding? Those questions are natural, but they are not the first thing to focus on. The deeper question is this: who are they becoming after last night? Because action comes after inner change. First, the truth settles in. Then the choices begin to shift. A person who has seen clearly cannot return to the exact same state as before. They may try, they may go quiet, they may act normal for a while, they may even pull back out of fear. But the old story has already cracked. The old defense has already weakened. And once that happens, their outer world eventually has to respond to what changed inside. Not always fast, not always in the way you expect. But the movement has begun. This is why patience matters here. Transformation rarely arrives in one perfect straight line. It moves in waves. One day there is clarity, the next day there is fear. One moment they want to move closer. The next moment, old habits return. Do not mistake that for failure. It often means the change is real. When a wall built over years starts to come down, it does not vanish in 1 second. It falls in pieces. But once it starts falling, it is already no longer what it was. There is also something you need to understand about the energy between two people when the bond is deep. Sometimes when one heart shifts, the other feels it before there is any visible proof. That may be why you have felt them more strongly, why their presence seems near even in silence, why your thoughts drift toward them without warning, why something in you keeps saying, something happened. These moments can feel strange because they do not arrive with logic. They arrive like a quiet signal, a subtle echo, a movement you cannot explain but cannot fully dismiss either. When someone goes through a private emotional breakthrough connected to a bond they have been resisting, that shift does not stay contained only inside them. It can ripple outward, it can be felt, not always loudly, not always clearly, but deeply. That is why the silence between two people is not always empty. Sometimes the silence is full of invisible movement, full of unfinished truth, full of emotional current. So if you have been waiting for some loud external proof, understand this. The deepest things often begin where no one can see them. The visible chapter comes later. First comes the hidden turning. First comes the private yes. The heart speaks before the mouth ever does. And this is where your role becomes important. Not because you need to chase them, not because you need to force clarity, not because you need to demand a response before they are ready. What they need most right now is not pressure. It is not urgency. It is not emotional weight added on top of what they are already carrying. What they need, whether they know it or not, is space to integrate. space to understand what has broken open, space to feel the truth without being pushed to perform it before it is fully settled inside them. If you can remain steady during this part, you become something rare. You become calm instead of chaos. You become quiet strength instead of more emotional noise. That matters, more than you realize, because when someone is in the middle of inner change, they are sensitive to what feels safe and what feels heavy. Your steadiness can become the signal that honesty does not need to be feared. Your peace can become the place their nervous system remembers. So no, your task is not to solve this for them. You cannot do their inner work, but you can hold your own center. You can refuse to panic. You can trust that what is real does not need to be chased every second to remain real. Sometimes the strongest love is not loud, sometimes it is stable. What happened last night may also have shown them something about the connection itself. Some bonds do not stay on the surface. They go deeper than convenience, deeper than timing, deeper than what logic can neatly explain. A connection that can stir this kind of private release, this kind of emotional truth, is not easily dismissed. It touches the hidden rooms inside a person. It wakes up parts of them that have been asleep. It asks more from them than comfort usually does, and that is exactly why people run from it before they accept it. Because real connection is not always easy at first. It exposes, it reveals. It asks a person to become more honest than they were prepared to be. That may be the reason they resisted for so long. Not because nothing was there, but because too much was there. Not because it was meaningless, but because it mattered enough to shake them. That is what strong feeling does. It removes the luxury of staying half awake. It forces the heart to choose between truth and avoidance. Last night, avoidance may have finally lost. And even if they do not yet know how to live out this new understanding, the understanding itself is now part of them. It will shape their next choices. It will return in quiet moments. It will speak when the noise fades again. You may still ask, how do I hold this without proof, without confirmation, without a message explaining everything? You hold it gently. You hold it with patience. You hold it without turning it into pressure. Not every true thing arrives with immediate evidence. Some things unfold slowly. Some changes need private time before they become visible action. That does not make them less real. In fact, some of the most important shifts in life happen long before the outside world reflects them. A person may look the same the next day. Their routine may stay the same. Their words may still sound careful. But inside, the old ground may already be gone. The tears may have already done their work. The truth may have already planted itself where it cannot be uprooted. That is why waiting is not always empty. Silence is not always absence. Beneath stillness, deep work can be happening. The heart can be rearranging itself. Fear can be wrestling with honesty. A new self can be trying to emerge. If you understand that, then you understand why this moment matters, even if no one speaks of it yet. Stay with that truth. Let it slow you down instead of speeding you into fear. Sometimes the unseen chapter is the chapter that changes everything, and there may be more waves ahead for them, more moments of clarity, more moments of doubt, more emotional rises and retreats. That is normal. Real inner change is rarely tidy. One day they may feel brave, the next day they may feel exposed. 1 hour they may want to come closer, the next they may want to disappear and regain control. This does not erase what happened. It confirms how deep it goes. When truth enters a guarded heart, it does not simply sit there untouched. It stirs everything around it. It challenges the old protections. It unsettles the familiar patterns. It asks for a new way of living. That can feel beautiful and terrifying at the same time. So if their path becomes uneven, do not assume the breakthrough was false. Often the opposite is true. The stronger the truth, the more it shakes what was built to avoid it. That is why this season calls for wisdom, not fantasy, not obsession. Wisdom, the kind that knows when to be still. The kind that knows transformation has its own pace. The kind that does not confuse delay with denial. If something real opened in them last night, it will keep working on them. Quietly, deeply, repeatedly, until their outer choices can no longer stay separated from their inner knowing. So take a slow breath and let this settle. Somewhere the person you love may be waking up today carrying a truth they did not fully carry before. They may look unchanged, they may say nothing, they may even try to move through the day as if it was only another night. But inside, something has already turned. The tears have marked a threshold. The understanding has entered the room. And from this point on, the connection lives in a different reality inside them than it did before. Let that bring you peace, not panic. Let it remind you that what is real does not vanish because it is quiet. What has been truly seen cannot be unseen. What has been deeply felt cannot simply be untold by the heart. And if last night was the night they finally stopped running from what they feel, then this is not the end of the story. It is the moment the story becomes honest. So stay grounded, stay open, stay clear in your own heart. The next chapter may not arrive all at once, but something meaningful has already begun. And sometimes one night of tears, one night of truth, one night of silent surrender becomes the turning point that changes everything that comes after.